I don't remember which episode it was, but Tim, you were going off on when
Amazon
Q got announced, right? Because there were so many limitations. It's like it was super expensive. I think there was only
you can only ask it
20 questions.
It was right? It had that whole Yogi on the Mountain thing where you can only ask it a few questions a day or something.
Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast. Cloud adoption is on the rise, and many network infrastructure professionals are being asked to adopt a hybrid approach. As individuals who have already started this journey, we would like to empower those professionals with the tools and the knowledge to bridge the gap.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cables to Clouds podcast. I am your host this week. My name is Alex Perkins. I am at Bumps on the Wire on X. I'm joined by Chris and Tim, my two lovely co-hosts as always. Chris Miles is BGP Main at BGP Main on Twitter. He's not on X, he's on Twitter. Same with Tim McConaughey, who is at Juan Golbez. They are both only on Twitter, and I'm the one on X.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Happy?
Yeah. Very happy, yeah. Hopefully they ban X. They should send a bill to Biden to ban it being called X. I would support that very much.
You don't say. They might be happening. All right. So we haven't done a roundtable in a while. Besides, obviously, we do the news every 2 weeks, and that's kind of a roundtable, but it's not about a specific topic that, we can riff on. So we thought this was a great time, right? Google Cloud Next happened a couple weeks ago. It was April 9th through 11th. It's like the end of April right now. So 2-3 weeks ago at this point. We did an episode last year covering AWS reInvent. Just like a recap of what we thought about a lot of the announcements. So this is going to be a similar format, right? It's not going to be like a super long episode. We're just going to kind of go over some of the announcements that we heard from Google Cloud Next and give our thoughts on them. It was also, I will say it was very AI and dev focused, right? Big surprise there.
Surprise.
Yeah.
Shocking.
I think I wanted to bring this up. I feels like, the devs move the needle more than anyone, right? Like nobody cares if infrastructure people come in and they're like, oh, I like doing infrastructure on AWS. That doesn't matter. It's whatever tooling the devs like that's where the business is
that's where the money is made. It's the revenue driver. That's it. The devs drive revenue, and that's why they get what they want.
I mean, I get it, but at the same time, I wonder if all this AI stuff is really hitting the mark for the dev people. Are you hearing these AI announcements? You're like, oh yeah, that's good stuff. We got to get that. Because to me, it's only been going on for, several months at this point, but it's like elevator music to me, dude. I just immediately am just glaze over, but
well,
this is.
Yeah, we don't care about some of the same things, right? We're going to talk about the token limits, right, on some of these models. That doesn't matter to us that much, right? But it probably matters a lot to devs. But it's also a race that is going to just be constantly going back and forth. So how do you pick one?
Feels like a race to the bottom sometimes.
Yeah. Do we know? Does Azure have a big event like this as well, like AWS and GCP?
Yeah. Ignite, but it's not.
Ignite? Yeah. Okay.
It's not as well. I guess this one wasn't as cloud focused either. To be fair, but Ignites. So maybe we'll have an Ignite review at some point. We'll see.
Kind of depends what come out of there, right? If they'd only talk about developers at developers at Ignite, and there won't be much to cover. But
true. All right. So before we jump in, if anyone listens to this and they have feedback, something you think we missed, please reach out. Let us know if there was something you think we should have covered, or we missed on, or you wanted us to elaborate on more. And some of this could definitely be evolved into future episodes as well. So let's just jump right in. So the first announcement I think I want to cover is this Gemini 1.5 Pro model. The big announcement around this is really that it's Pro. It's got to be the Pro. The the big announcement is that this is 1 million tokens. And to put this in comparison, Gemini 1 had 32,000. So this is not like a small advancement. This is really, really big. And ChatGPT 4 does 128,000 and Claude 3 has 200,000. So this is a pretty significant update. I haven't actually used Gemini a whole lot. Have either of you guys messed around with it much?
Not at all, actually.
No, not really. Yeah, I'm sadly mostly on GPT-4, and I think we use some of the Claude models occasionally as well, with some of the tooling we use. Yeah. But yeah, I haven't really touched Gemini, but I've been hearing a lot of good things.
Yeah, I was going to say Claude. I mean, I think most people I know use ChatGPT, but Claude I hear a lot about as well, that people are using.
I think it's going to matter what the tooling is. Like, just to point that out, right? Most of us that are doing work are going to be using a tool that uses some back end, like True. Whether it be Gemini. So I think maybe let's see what Gemini comes out with, or what it gets rolled into, and then we'll see how much we end up using it.
Yeah, for sure. So with this announcement, they also talked a lot about AI agents. And if anyone has heard us talk about ChatGPT, this is kind of like the custom GPTs, right? It's like you can make your own. Some of the examples are customer agents, employee agents. They had a whole like diagram on the screen of creative agents, data agents, code agents. And you build these with Vertex AI, right? And they can talk to each other and then obviously interface with humans. So the idea is that, we keep joking about that agent that was made that was really just ChatGPT for the car dealership, right? This is a legally binding agreement. So, you're going to see a lot more of this. I think if you hear anyone talk about AI, a lot of people are predicting that agents talking to each other and kind of breaking the functionality into smaller pieces is the way this is going to go. And then there'll be something that ties the agents together. So I think this is just
AI microservices.
Yeah, they're right.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Hey, that episode we did with Dewan, he was talking about this, wasn't he? About the roles, like the GPT, custom GPT with roles and stuff, which we thought was pretty interesting at the time. I guess this is just another implementation of that then.
Yeah, that, and also, if you guys remember when I talked about the NVIDIA conference that happened recently, I brought up the NIMs.
That's right.
I forget what they're called, like inference models or something.
That's right.
Which are basically microservice AI agents, right? So everyone has one. Big surprise for all this AI stuff, right? Yeah, real quick, Palo Alto, I guess, announced during this that Gemini is their AI engine of choice, right, for all their threat detection, products that they have. It's interesting because I guess the Google Cloud firewall that they uses Palo Alto's threat detection as well. So it's it's a partnership already. So it's like how much weight do you put into both sides saying the same thing?
I mean, they're under the covers, just like all the other ones. They're probably running some Palo code,
for sure. All right, let's see. So we got Gemini Code Assist. Chris, you added this one. Is there anything particular you want to point out about this one?
Yeah, I think on the surface, Gemini Code Assist is obviously a competitor with Microsoft Copilot, if you're familiar with Copilot. So it's basically just an integrated AI tool that will help with generating code. Microsoft Copilot has been insanely successful. I think that has actually led to a lot of integration in Azure as well. So it's kind of helped them out a whole hog. Whereas Gemini Code Assist is it's not really new. It was if you remember Duet AI, which was what they had for developers. I think they just put that out. That's not even that old. I think it was like 2 to 3 years old.
That's Google for you.
Yeah, and then to be fair, they did say that it was eventually going to be integrated with the Gemini pro models once they were available. So it's not like the writing on the wall was there, I guess, to some context. But the one thing that stood out here, I think, is obviously with Gemini Code Assist being launched and the new Gemini 1.5 Pro having that 1 million token limit. We've heard, this allows for potentially for developers to put their entire code base into these models, so the model will have full context about their code base and can offer improvements, optimizations and things like that.
Predictive, help you out with predictive stuff as well. Yeah,
that too. Which, don't get me wrong, sounds cool. Sounds like it could be really helpful to have someone with all that context, especially someone on the development side like Google. But I can't help but think on like me as a like in my personal life, how much I try to avoid giving my data to Google and how impossible it is to do sometimes. But like, I don't know. Do we see this being like, is that a trustworthy thing at this point to give your entire code base to Google, or like, how do you guys feel about it?
I think that definitely depends on who you are, right? It's funny because right before this, we were talking about some of the sessions from Google Cloud Next and how I haven't even watched them because you have to actually register for an account just to watch these sessions, right?
Right.
So I don't know. This isn't exclusive to Gemini though, right? Like everybody's worried about putting your data into these models. So
losing it in the model and you never pull it out again.
It's competitive advantage, right? Like if now people can pull from this, like you're giving away a lot of your competitive advantages as well. So I don't know. It depends on who you are, but there's a lot of considerations when it comes to this stuff.
I mean, and a lot of organizations are, successfully or unsuccessfully trying to build their own private models for this exact reason, right? To be able to either for compliance reasons or because they literally do not want to hand out their proprietary code to some third party. Even, whether or not you trust Google is, or any of them, right? Or Microsoft or AWS or whatever. I don't know. Like, I think that's a big deal.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like you said, it's a bigger question for just putting, I guess, any of your code into any of these models at any given time. Because while, you are paying them for these services, at the same time, I'm sure they would gladly take any opportunity to, potentially, if you're competing with them in any regard, to build an app that's better than yours, that does what yours does, plus more. And then if they have your code, it's hard not to be skeptical in that situation, so to say.
What's the lock?
Sure.
What's keeping them from looking at it is the real question, right? At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Or using it, right? Like, remember when Copilot was announced, everyone was freaking out because it was basically just scraping GitHub. Right?
That's right. It was going to
look
the
same thing. Yeah. So, yeah. So the next one, this is kind of cool. So we talked a lot about this a while back, probably like we were talking about this before, Tim. I think a year ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So custom silicon, right? So far, AWS, as far as we can all remember, is the only one that kind of has their own custom silicon, right? That's those,
Graviton.
I always mix up Graviton or Nitro. It's okay. Nitro's the hypervisor, right?
Yeah.
So Google announced Axion, right? Which is their own custom ARM-based CPU. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts here, really. I mean, this was kind of expected. We talked about and predicted that I think all the CSPs are going to start coming out with their own. I assume Microsoft is probably this year will announce their own, maybe next year at the latest, but I guarantee that all of them are working on it. You guys got any thoughts?
I'm kind of just surprised it took this long. If I'm being honest. I mean, I mean, to be fair, I'm not looking for it, but I'm not hearing these like insane success stories related to Graviton. Obviously it probably does help, in terms of cost and things like that. But, I mean, like you said, this was expected, right? We know the other CSPs want to compete with Graviton, so this is kind of the first iteration of that. And yeah, Microsoft. I know that Microsoft and like IBM and everybody's been talking about how they are working on it, but no announcements yet. So we'll have to see where that goes.
Well, and have those costs been passed on?
Yeah, I kind of wonder too.
Is it really just cost savings for the CSPs, or is it actually being passed on to the customer? Right? It doesn't seem like there's been.
I don't think so. I mean, we'd have to go pull up the like the AWS pricing calculator, but I believe Graviton is being sold as essentially higher performance, which it is, right? Because it's written to take advantage of AWS. Their whole what you call it, hypervisor stack and custom everything. Same with this. So I don't think it's actually cheaper to the customer. I think it's probably cheaper for them to run because it's more optimized, and because it's more optimized, they can get better performance out of it. So yeah, I think it's probably the case here too. Although I didn't see any, and there's no pricing in this article we're looking at, right?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. It's almost like double dipping, right? Because they cut costs by creating their own custom silicone, and then they also, this is high performance, so let's raise prices as well, right?
I mean, we get definitely there's definitely lots of customers that ask, hey, Graviton, are you going to support it? Is it useful? Are you going to be using it? So there are definitely people that notice and want to take advantage of it, but there's definitely still some what's the word I'm looking for? There's some limitations, like your app has to support it, like if you're at that level, at the instruction level.
All right, so we got Google Cloud Assist was another thing announced. This is funny because I don't remember which episode it was, but Tim, you were going off on when Amazon Q got announced, right? Because there were so many limitations. It's like it was super expensive. I think there was you can only ask it 20 questions.
It was, yeah, right? It had that whole Yogi on the Mountain thing where you can only ask it a few questions a day or something.
And I think if you closed out of the window and came back, it would like wipe the chat.
It didn't save anything. Yeah, it didn't save anything.
So I don't know. I don't think there's a whole lot of details in this announcement, but I really hope it's better than when Q was launched, right?
To be fair, I haven't gone back to Q and looked at it. Maybe that was like a first blush and it's better now. I doubt it, since I haven't seen or heard anyone using it. So if you're out there and you're using Q, we would love to know, like, is it good? Do you like it? Is it better? How many questions do you waste every day getting to what you care about?
Right.
It's more like, is it worth the money? Because it was obviously priced higher than I think a lot of us expected. And it's, if you're paying for it, I'm really curious if it's worth it.
Well, for what you got specifically, and not just that exactly, was expensive. It was like for what you got at that time. So yeah. And Google gets a free pass on this specific episode simply because Cloud Assist just says essentially what it does, but gives no detail like the Amazon one did.
I was going to say, I will say of the few presentations that I did watch, specifically around cloud networking, like they had this one about what's new with cloud networking in GCP. And it seems like a lot of the focus was on using Google Cloud Assist to look at things like capacity limits, latency, but directly tied to your applications, not looking with kind of these generic terms, but you could literally ask it for, hey, what is latency to my particular application look like in these 4 regions? And it would give you like a graph that you could interact with. It was actually nice. Pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Which I think the actual way they do the graphing on the back end is some other proprietary thing that they use, and I can't remember what it's called. It's escaping me right now, but it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. All this, the graphing stuff, I think, right, if their focus is on devs, right, a lot of the networking stuff they kind of want abstracted. So I guess it would make sense if it's got to focus on the networking piece. And I do remember, I feel like parts of the article were talking about how it can kind of help you build infrastructure.
It did say that,
gather, like what you have. It kind of like helps you optimize it or figure out what could run well on it. So that's an interesting angle that I don't think Q was taking.
Yeah, I think that's right. And yeah, the article did specifically mention you could actually build resources with the Cloud Assist, and also that you could be like, hey, how do I optimize my CPU or something? And it could go figure out that information for you. Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, the tools are only going to get better, right? So even if it's not great now, I assume in the future they'll be a lot better.
Yeah, we can only hope.
Okay, Cloud Service Mesh. This is one, when I saw it announced, I was very excited, right? Like the day I saw this blog come out, I think I reached out to Yvonne, I was excited. I was like, hey, you guys are announcing some pretty cool stuff. And this is a cool product. I wrote down that this is a VPC Lattice competitor, but after kind of doing some more digging, I'm not sure that's what it is. Because really, so I'll just real quick, I'll explain what this is. It combines Traffic Director. So there's two existing products, Traffic Director and Anthos Service Mesh. And Traffic Director is basically a managed control plane for your service mesh. And Anthos Service Mesh is a managed Istio-based service mesh. So Cloud Service Mesh, I know a lot of alliteration here, right? But Cloud Service Mesh is kind of just integrates both of these into one managed control and data plane service mesh, right? And it's specifically, they call out, it manages a data plane of Envoy sidecars, which is the proxy that pretty much all service mesh companies use. Like Linkerd wrote their own, so I guess they wouldn't apply. And Cilium doesn't really use service sidecars, but everybody else uses Envoy. It's a very popular sidecar proxy. And then also like this, like Lattice, right? How Lattice goes across VMs and containers and like Kubernetes endpoints and Lambda, right? Like this also goes across VMs, containers, Cloud Run, all the different pieces. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of similar to Lattice, but in a different way. What do you guys think here?
Well, it doesn't have the specific. Remember, Lattice has specific focus, right? Like only TCP based application. Like there's certain limitations that the way the Lattice is built. So yeah, definitely different, but I can see functionally similar. Which it's funny because when we did that in an episode with Alexandra and Justin, they were like, don't call it a service mesh, right? but a spade is a bit of a spade, right? So yeah, the fact that it looks similar is not surprising.
Yeah, Lattice seems to be, I hate to say that it's a little bit more focused on re-architecting, because I don't feel like your architecture changes that much, but like some of the core components in VPC Lattice are much more, you have to be fully integrated with AWS using that. This seems like it could maintain some portability. But I mean, that could be, I don't know, that could be short-sighted. It's kind of hard to tell. I'm not as well versed in this. So maybe Alex, you know, if that sounds that way at all.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. And I do think there is some validity to that, right? Because like I was talking about Envoy, right? Sidecar proxies are you can deploy them anywhere, right? It doesn't matter. It's not like that's a GCP thing. But also, of course, all the cloud providers have their own Kubernetes offerings. Right. So if you're using like GKE, I don't know all the terms for like what they call it when it's in a different cloud, right? Like how they have EKS anywhere and I don't know what the Google name for that is, but I imagine that this would extend anywhere you wanted to place it. So that is a really good point. And yeah, it's different from VPC Lattice in that way, because you are tied in specifically to AWS. And real quick, Justin, if Justin is listening, he can tell me not to call it a service mesh all he wants, but that's my first thought. And I know it's like a service mesh on steroids, but that's how I've always looked at it.
Shots fired.
All right. So I got another one. This is just a super quick little fact that I saw. Google Distributed Cloud Hosted That's a mouthful. But this is basically their secret and top secret workload approved cloud offering. So this is comparable to AWS GovCloud and MAG, which is Microsoft Azure for government. This is one like I feel like this should have came out a long time ago. I don't hear many organizations using GCP for any kind of work. So it'll be interesting. They're behind on this, I guess, is my point. It'll be interesting to see what the uptake looks like now that this is available.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you, Tim. I don't know if you're seeing a lot of GovCloud customers, and it seems like I don't hear about it. I mean, obviously, you have certain customers that are all in on it and aren't going to use any cloud services unless they're integrated there. But yeah, it's like they're late, but obviously there's so much more of the market to tackle than this.
Oh, for sure.
So I'm not faulting them for being late with this. At least now they can scrape up some of that as well. But yeah.
I was just saying that I think that the question is going to be whether or not they made significant improvements on the things that the federal government would appreciate about a government entity, right? So that's the question. Is this better? Is it more? I mean, they're all FIPS compliant, for example, but like, does this have extra stuff that the government's asked for that maybe AWS doesn't have because it's oldest or something?
Well, and it's a fair point, Chris, that most agencies, probably none, are fully migrated to any kind of GovCloud anyway. So I guess, right. Maybe they're not late, right? Maybe they're perfectly on time.
True.
Okay. So now we're going to get into some ones that are going to be a little bit confusing as we call out these names, right? And we'll get to that in a minute. But let's start with cross-cloud network. Okay. So I want to preface all this by saying this is our understanding of what these products mean, right? And try to do a bunch of digging into this. Some of these names are very confusing and redundant, right? So
and subsets of other ones, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And they're tied together, and some pieces are not in one product, but they're in another. But cross-cloud network is the overall name for, I guess, the platform GCP has created for networking, right? So this includes their next generation firewall, cross-cloud interconnect, right, which is how they connect to other clouds, and then private service connect, right? And this just allows you guys can probably speak to this better.
Basically like private link.
Yeah, PSC much. Is like private link. Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. So what do you guys think about this one first before we dive in any deeper?
So yeah, I mean, I went through the article. This includes not just CCI, the cross-cloud interconnect, but what is it? They're talking about how you can connect SaaS SSE stuff to it, SD-WAN. When I read cross-cloud network as a platform, what comes to mind is either like a Cloud WAN or a vWAN, depending on how you want to talk about it, type of thing where it's going to centralize connectivity from what they call hybrid and multi-cloud sources. In fact, that's what it says in the diagram, hybrid and multi-cloud sources. So it's a little different than both vWAN and Cloud WAN, but it's also just so confusing the way they've stacked this all up. So anyway, we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, pretty much. It feels, I mean, I think that is a good point, that it feels like a mix between maybe Cloud WAN and vWAN, whereas like it's kind of all contained in this thing. You get all these like service enablements within CCN or Cross Cloud Connect, as we're calling it, but it also has these interconnect points to integrate. Even I think that's another thing that's really important here, is that one of the main focuses is integrating other CSPs, where you don't see that a lot with any of these other kind of full-fledged networking products from the other CSPs. There's a strong focus on interconnectivity with outside organizations, whether it be on-prem, other CSPs and things like SD-WAN. But then it's also confusing because some of that stuff was also kind of offered through NCC. And I guess that was kind of the confusing piece, is like, this is not NCC. It was pretty clear that they're not the same thing.
NCC being Network Connectivity Center, which is
correct.
a Google a front end for Google Cloud router where you can configure it. That's what NCC is for.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And it's weird because a lot of the documentation around NCC makes that seem kind of more like vWAN, right? Where it's like a managed hub. So there's so many similarities. It's just weird. I wish they did a better job of kind of clarifying, but that's just me. A good thing, like Chris pointed out, is that who else is integrating different clouds, right? We've talked
Nobody's talking about it, at least. Yeah.
No.
Nobody's talking about it. Well, Oracle. No, Oracle's talking about it, to be fair.
That's true. Oracle definitely does.
Oracle's talking about it, but I think once we get into the weeds about cross-cloud interconnect or CCI, yes, there's a strong focus on interconnectivity with other clouds. I will be honest, when I read how CCI is done, it's a lot more elementary than I thought it would be. Yes. But I mean, it is a start. And it's, let's get into it. Let's kind of,
go ahead, Chris,
talk about, so CCI, cloud interconnect or cross cloud interconnect is basically, Google's offering saying that, you can use the private Google backbone, to interconnect with other CSPs being, predominantly AWS, Azure, Oracle. Even AliCloud is listed on there. When you kind of look into the reference architecture diagrams, it just looks like they have probably dedicated 10 gig and 100 gig connections, potentially in some kind of meet me room with these other CSPs. And it really just looks like when you configure these through CCI, there's a dedicated Google Cloud router in the colocation facility that can terminate the layer 3 connectivity. But it also sounds like there's no orchestration at all on the remote end. So you're still deploying direct connect. You're still deploying express route in the exact same fashion you would with those, which totally makes sense. I understand that Google isn't in bed enough with these other CSPs to make this a fully orchestrated product between the two. But at the same time, it's like,
I could have picked up the phone and done that myself. I didn't need you, Google, to help me with this part.
Yeah. I mean, in one of the presentations I watched, there was a customer success story from, I think, Citadel is who it was, where, they had a migration project where they had to get something done with cross-cloud connectivity, data transfer, that needed to take place within, the order of 2 months or something like that. And it was a ton of data. They needed like 10 terabytes of connectivity per hour and things like that. So it was a lot of stuff that needed to happen. And the orchestration of that, doing it on-prem was, they had to orchestrate, enough network infrastructure to own the capacity, enough circuits to own the capacity. Doing that all themselves would have been a much larger burden than just using something like CCI. So I see the opportunity, but it's like, I don't know, the consumption of it just seems, I don't know how much, I don't know how it's priced either. Like if it's astronomical, then that would not make sense to me, but I would imagine that it's not. It left a little bit to be desired, if I'm being honest, but
yeah, I mean, let's be clear. What the CCI offering is Google will set up a Google router in Google and connect a Google circuit to over to the other, so over to say an Amazon router where you as the customer went to Amazon, bought the direct connect, connected it, and then the Google Cloud router is essentially just replacing your on-prem router that would peer over the direct connect with, say, a VGW or something. So like, just instead of your router that you would be connecting, now it's a Google Cloud router. That's the extent of the integration. Again, good start, but I'm with you, Chris. If that costs a lot of money to do, that I could have just picked up the phone and done that myself. Like I didn't need.
Yeah. I mean, like you guys are saying, I mean, it really just takes away that middleman, right? Like then you don't have to worry about terminating on either end of like your own gear and renting out like colo, whatever it costs to like rent out a room in a colo facility and then bring those connections both into your own gear. But cost is a big deal here to think about.
Yeah, if they charge an arm and a leg to do that, which you're already paying, by the way, for the circuit from Google and for the circuit from, the other cloud, that notwithstanding the service itself. So that's already a decent amount of money, right? If they're charging you a mint on top of that just to let one cable go over to the other provider router so you can do the peering you were going to have to do anyway, that would not fly with me.
Yeah, it would. I feel like it would make more sense if there was some incentive to do this, as far as like maybe the data transfer rates were less or something like that. But it would have to be, it's
pretty underwhelming, honestly.
It's underwhelming, but at the same, like, I understand that like AWS and Azure, Ali, OCI aren't going to like be in cahoots with this product and offer this kind of like seamless thing.
They're not excited to jump into this.
Well, you need a third party. You need a third party that's agnostic to all of them that will be that middle person, and connect those clouds and just be that. So you don't have to build your own infrastructure in that colo, because that's what's missing, right, from this is that.
Which already exists to a degree, and it's Equinix and it's Megaport and it's all these people that are doing things like that, right? So I mean, I don't unless you have this like significant orchestration piece from the control plane side that is built within Cross Cloud Connect, that is a benefit to the actual end customer. I don't see why you don't just do this with a third party provider like Equinix or something like that.
Well, that's the question I have, right? Because a lot of the diagrams, it's hard to grasp exactly what story they're trying to tell with some of these diagrams. But the cross-cloud network stuff, they at least are talking about it and making it seem like they want to bring in those into like this overall
like a
platform
hub thing,
right? Yeah. It's kind of like they're at the beginnings of integrating everything into one platform that you can manage everything from. So if it evolves to that, I'm all for this. Like, yeah, this is super early stages, but hopefully it does, right? Hopefully it does evolve into something more where you can do stuff with it.
Yeah. I mean, their option for integrated security with like this, the offering of perimeter protection with the secure services edge. Yeah. That seems cool. That's something that is referenced in Cross Cloud Network that does look cool, and I'd say probably a little bit more advanced than maybe other offerings at the current time. We'll see.
Yeah, I think
but they're integrating things like Fortinet, Palo, even Broadcom was on there too. I don't know exactly what.
Symantec.
Yeah, okay,
Broadcom.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense.
Everything by Broadcom.
Carl's Jr. brought to you by Broadcom.
Cross Cloud Network by Broadcom.
And to be clear, CCI, Cross Cloud Interconnect, is a subset of Cross Cloud Network. So that's just like one more connectivity option.
To be clear.
Yeah. Well, you have to be, because this shit is like, the naming is so awful. Anyway.
Yeah, they got to figure something out. The other one, like we've talked about, so Network Connectivity Center and Cross Cloud Network seem to kind of share a lot of similarities, but also they have Google Distributed Cloud. And I just like, someone needs to just clean up
the naming
and tell the story better of what these things actually are. Because I thought I knew what distributed cloud was. I thought it was some kind of like subset with Anthos and, being able to spread out, like manage Kubernetes clusters everywhere. But I'm not even sure that that's right anymore. I don't know.
I mean, they can do as Google does and just kill it off, like lean into something.
True.
Make it easy for us.
All right. I got two last quick ones and then we'll wrap it up. So there was model as a service endpoint, right? And this is basically what it sounds like. This is allowing you to provide an AI model to customers, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if this is similar to what AWS does with Bedrock, is it? I mean, I don't.
It's different, it's an endpoint, probably not. Yeah.
No. It's probably not, right?
It's probably using Private Service Connect, and they have like a load balancer on their side, or whoever's offering the model would have like a load balancer on their side, and you offer it as like a service. Like I don't forget what the Google version of it is, but in AWS you have like a marketplace. I'm sure Google has a similar marketplace.
I think Bedrock is the marketplace, right?
Yeah. Oh, maybe for that it is. Yeah, maybe.
Right. Okay. And then we got this one we've talked about actually a couple times, but the Google Cloud VMware Engine. It's just that they've, on their end, has announced the VMware Cloud Foundation license portability, which is kind of cool, right? If you're all in on VMware, which means now you're all in on VMware Cloud Foundation.
Yep.
You are able to have that portability between running your VMs and containers, I guess, if you're using Tanzu,
or in the cloud,
on-prem, and then migrating to GCP. I don't know what that migration piece looks like either, because I heard that HCX isn't really a thing anymore. So I don't know.
So they're just going to stretch VLANs across the do vMotion.
Yeah, this is cool, I guess, if you're all in on VMware. But at this point, I think if you're still all in on VMware and remaining all in on VMware, you probably have bigger fish to fry with other things.
Yeah. So this was probably not your problem to solve at that point. Right. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is everything we wanted to cover. You guys got any last quick thoughts before we wrap up, or you good?
No, I think, I think it was, we wanted to do this episode because I do feel like we focused on the top two players in this space a lot, being AWS and Azure. And, I feel like we should give some love to GCP, Google Cloud. It's not GCP anymore.
Yeah.
Is that right? It's not GCP.
That is correct. Anymore. That is correct. It's Google Cloud now.
They even named
the cloud. Okay. Yeah. They renamed it to Google Cloud because they love naming and renaming.
Maybe this is why they're third. We'll see. But yeah, I think it was nice to give them some love. Obviously they have some really cool technology advance. Some of it is playing catch up, which they've had to do. And, AI has probably been quite the disruptor for them. But it's nice to see some of the stuff coming in, like cross-cloud network. It's hard to maintain the knowledge base around all these things when they're so closely named and kind of do the same thing. But, we've been doing it with AWS for a while. Why not one more?
Yeah, for sure. Tim, you got anything?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. We definitely, as multi-cloud networking folks, we don't spend a lot of time on GCP because GCP networking is so alien to traditional networking. But we need to put more effort in on it. I think that there's still a lot of value here, and it looks like they're moving in the right direction with some of these new offers, even how goofy some of them might be. I do wish they'd get their naming worked out, but I'm excited to see what's coming next. It looks like they're paying a little bit more attention to networking, and that's already important.
Yeah, for those that aren't familiar with in Google, Tim, you tell me if you agree, but when you learn networking in Google or in Google Cloud specifically, it feels like they did a lot of work to make it something that is not considered by anyone, right? It's like it want to be completely obfuscated to the developer. Yeah, you don't have to care about it whatsoever.
Auto
mode.
Don't even
do
have
not
to
do auto
IP
mode.
things.
Please don't do auto mode. If you're a
developer, you don't care.
But yeah, so it's nice to see them make some strides like this, kind of refocusing back on some kind of core components of networking. So yeah, we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, agreed. I think it is exciting. Like you guys said, I'll just echo what you guys both said, that it's nice to be able to focus on not just Azure and AWS, right? GCP and OCI are definitely still heavily investing and making advancements. And it's good to see there was a lot of networking stuff at this conference. So it's good to see that they're listening and evolving. I think it's good.
Does Oracle do one of these? We should probably look and see if OCI actually does one of these.
I know there's some conference they do that's later in the year. I can't remember what it's called right now.
We'll keep an eye out for that one and see if we can get somebody from Oracle to talk about it with us. Yeah.
Yep, for sure.
All right. Well, with that, let's go ahead and wrap up. So, as usual, if you like the episode, please share it around. Let all your friends, let your family know about it.
Your mom,
tell your grandparents. Yeah,
mom, dad, grandma.
Yeah, mom, dad, grandma, everybody. Like and subscribe, all the things. I think we're on every platform, as Chris likes to say, except Instagram. Right? We're not on Instagram.
I don't think so. No.
We're not on Truth Social.
That's true.
There you go.
That's true.
We're on both X and Twitter, though. So
yeah, both X and Twitter.
Yeah.
All right. And then, as always, like feedback is always welcome, right? Please reach out to us, send us an email, cablestoclouds@gmail.com. We're always open to have more conversations and talk about things that we might not be thinking about much. So thanks for listening, and we will catch you guys next time. Hi, everyone. It's Alex, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all of our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables2Clouds. You could also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.